Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome David Israel, our guest tonight.
Thanks for making me run away. Where do you want me? Thank you.
It's funny, David, because there's been a couple guests where that was the scariest part of the night. Was just,
I was like, oh
just
no,
that part. Like,
I don't want these people to have to do that.
So that's what we do. But again, for those of you who have not been to Startup Grind, it really is just a conversation between David and I. It's just a discussion about his experiences, what he's done. Obviously around startups and starting a company or companies, because he started several. And so we'll have interview for 45-ish minutes, and then we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A. So hold your questions at the end. Feel free to get up, grab wine, beer, food, drink. You're not going to interrupt us. Obviously, it's videotaped, so it'll be online in about a week or so, 10 days. That's it. So again, thanks for coming.
I'm glad to be here. Honored to be here.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So the reason why we connected was one, you have an interesting background.
I do.
But two, the volume of work that you've done is pretty interesting. I don't necessarily care some of the things like I did specifics, but kind of give us a general idea of the last 3 or 4 companies that you have started and have grown. I mean, the last 2 have been, you're still working on actually.
We're still working on quite a few.
Give us an idea of your
my biggest,
background.
so my first big company was called Pawn Exchange. It's not one that I'm really proud of today. I mean, it was a very successful company. It did exactly what I wanted to do, and can I take a step back?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, when I was about, I think I was 26 or 27, and my wife and I had just been married. We moved, we came back to Seattle, and a friend of mine said, who had sold a large chain of jewelry stores, he asked me to come in and be his partner. And I knew nothing really about the business, but he opened up in a place called Aurora Village at the time.
Oh, wow.
Back in
So this was what year?
88,
late
89.
80s. Yeah.
And we moved in, and everybody else started moving out. Nordstrom's closed. That was called Frederick & Nelson's, which is another great department store here. They moved out. Sears shut down. Everybody's leaving, and it's becoming this ghost town. And for me at the time, I had made some money doing some deals, and I put everything I had into this thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is not good. So turns out, we signed a 5-year lease. And we were there for maybe 9 months or a year. And I'm like the last 4 months, I'm just like ready to pull my hair out. My wife's ready to kill me. Our 5-year lease turned out to be worth a lot because everybody's moving out because they're not renewing leases because they want to build a Costco and a Home Depot there. So,
oh, really?
Yes. So all of a sudden, the developer comes to us and says, hey, you know what? We need to take you out of your lease. So I have no idea what I'm doing. My partner, who's from a very successful family, he really didn't know what he was doing either, but he was pretty arrogant. So he put a price tag out there, and you know what? They took it. So I turned out, walking away with a pretty good chunk of money for a guy who was about to lose everything. And all these jewelry stores started to call me up.
Thought you knew what you were doing.
No, they wanted to borrow money. Because jewelry stores, if you're not a major chain, you're a family-run business. And it's really difficult to get financing because inventory control, management, banks aren't really financing you.
Interesting. Yeah.
So they came to me, and I started to loan them money, but I wanted collateral because I didn't trust them. That led to coin shops, then precious metal dealers, and then pawn shops. And I was loaning money to pawn shops, and all these other folks up and down the I-5 corridor. And I was like, God, how do these guys make money? They treat their customers like crap. Their stores look like crap. Everything's overpriced. Their hours suck. And it was one day I read in Fortune magazine about this company called Cash America out of Dallas, Texas, that went public. And they were getting all these accolades. And they were buying old mom and pop shops and consolidating them and turning them into retail presence, right? Shirts and ties, really nice stores, everything was priced right, and they were going haywire, and they said they were going to grow. So I was like, hey, well, this is something I could do. So I wrote a business plan with the help of Deloitte Touche, and then decided that's what I was going to do. Went down to Cash America, looked at all their stores in Dallas, took pictures, came back, replicated it here. And look, I just thought, at the time, I knew it was a slam dunk, easy deal, kind of brainless. It wasn't. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, so I could loan money on jewelry, but my first loan happened to be a Sawzall. So I was like, uh-oh, how do I test that to see if it's real, right? Yeah. So anyway, it did exactly what I wanted. The goal was to build this chain and sell it to Cash America. And we built it from one store in 1993. We had about 16 stores by 1996. Howard Schultz, Jeff Brabham, the majority of all the top executives at Starbucks and Costco and their boards were my investors. That's so great. I raised about $4 million in 96, and I encountered a little hiccup, but that later, about 9 years later, sold to Cash America for about $80 million. Yeah. So it did exactly what I wanted, but there were some other things along the way.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us, in that process of, the sale of the company, which is always I went through 3 myself. They're super hard. They're super frustrating normally. What were the things that you could have done better?
Well, we could have held out, number one.
Well, sure.
Because the value of our business was getting stronger. But the thing was, by the 9 years later or 10 years later, I had stepped aside because of, which I'm sure we'll get to and cover, some hiccups in my process there. Look, I think we did everything exactly right, except hold our ground for a higher dollar number.
Yeah. So you just, other than that, you would have just said, let's wait a few more years.
It was so profitable. That business is very lucrative if you do operate properly. We made it even more profitable because we were managing our money and our finances, and we figured out the formula of how to really be successful was, loans are great, but when you convert those loans into a retail sale, which isn't a lot, by the way, it's about a 25% of the people don't come back if they get a loan, or they might be there selling you something. So, but when you convert that inventory and you clean it and you polish it up and you merchandise it properly, we're getting a lot more than our competitors were, probably twice as much. And we could offer layaway. We were well financed because we were completely, we had banks, chomping at the bit to be our banker. Yeah, because we knew what we were doing. It was all, we had, all of the financial management in place. We had all of our products were inventoried and put away. So, we knew exactly what we were doing.
Yeah. So talk to us about this food business that you're, it's funny, we tried to get together for coffee before this event, probably at least 4 or 5 times.
Yep.
Every time I'd email him, he'd respond back, oh, no, I'm flying to blah, blah, blah tomorrow. And tomorrow, you're flying again.
I fly again tomorrow.
He's traveled like a crazy man. So tell us about the food business that really is what's going on today in your life. And, I know it's doing well. Give us a hint what it is.
So, I started a company called Pop Gourmet, which started out as a popcorn company. And that just changed my life because not just because where it originated from, but because, look, I'm just the kind of guy, I like to move really fast. Obstacles, I'm just like, I'll figure it out later. And I don't like the word no. I don't like the word I can't. Words I can't. But it turned out that food seemed to be the right fit for me at the right time because innovation was lacking. It doesn't matter what category I went into. But as soon as I figured out popcorn, I started saying, okay, I need to replicate this. And I need to move into chips and then condiments and then all these other things. Yeah. So last February, I stepped away from Pop Gourmet as a CEO. I resigned because I had different views than the chairman. And look, because of my history, I picked up some bad habits, which I don't like to be bullied. And if someone tries to bully me, I have a couple of choice words, and which I'm not proud of all the time. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, I wish that really wasn't kind of part of my temperament, but it is. But I try to do the right thing all the time. But I decided to move on and do what I'm passionate about, and that is being innovative and trying to disrupt categories. So I had formed a relationship with a company called Hoi Fung that does a sauce called sriracha. And in 2013, when I reached out to David Tran, who was the founder, they had never, ever partnered with anybody before. Never. And I just happened to have the right story at the right time. I was doing all these really cool products with my popcorn, and I did Almond Roca. I partnered with them. I partnered with a company called Rogue Blue Creamery out of Oregon to do this really high-end blue cheese popcorn, and Oprah was a big fan of mine, and we were doing all these great things. And I thought, well, you know what? I partnered with a company here in Seattle called Bacon Salt.
Oh, the bacon salt guys.
Yeah, and they were doing really well. I thought, this is a great collaboration. So Dave Lefkow and I had partnered, and I used his seasoning, and I launched Simply Bacon. And you know what? It was the one product it was a great product, by the way. But when it was on, people bought it. I either got an email that we love it, or I got an email that we hate it, and we're not buying any more of your products. And not being from the food industry, I was still smart enough to understand that wasn't good news.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody doesn't like your product, you don't want it to be offensive enough. They're not going to buy anything else. So I was seeing this 50-50 thing for a while. I mean, quite a bit. And I decided I can't have bacon salt anymore. So I went down to tell Dave that I really appreciated him trusting me with his brand, and I had to have to discontinue his popcorn because I had to find something that really connected with the consumer better. And he goes, like what? I said, well, I don't know. I'm thinking about reaching out to the sriracha folks. I left his office. 5 months later, he has a product on the shelf, and it's a Hoi Fung. Well, it's not a Hoi Fung. It's a sriracha popcorn with a rooster and the green cap, and it's got the bottle on the front. And I was like, oh my God. And I did control my temper, and I wrote him an email. I go, you know what? That's awful. That's pretty unethical, but shame on me. I shouldn't have been broadcasting my idea. Well, 4 months later, I find out that he's not partnered with him. He's just knocked him off. And my branding guy drafts this email and he designed a bag, and it had the real Hoi Fung design on it, and it had my logo on the front. He goes, you should try to reach out to these guys. He goes, they don't want to do business with anybody, but it's worth a shot. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't really need a battle. And, so I just decided one day I kept pulling it up and looking at this cool bag, and I was like, what the heck? So I called down there. No, it's impossible to reach anybody. I send an email. There's only info at Hoi Fung, and they don't respond for a couple weeks. So I just packed up a box of all my products, and I wrote him a letter, and I go, let me tell you about Pop Gourmet, let me tell you about me, and let me tell you a story about this other company that I dealt with in Seattle. I said, I think you should allow me to bring the real sriracha popcorn to the consumer. And I don't know, I sent it off, and a week later I get this email, and the subject line was sriracha popcorn. And I was like, oh shit. Came in like at 9:30 in the morning. And I'm not opening this because I don't want to ruin my day. Yeah. So, and my whole office is like, open it. I'm like, no, can't do it. So I think I got till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I finally went in and I pop it open because I knew if it was really bad I could go to a bar or something, fix that problem for the night. And I opened it up and he goes, Dear David, he goes, thank you so much. Your products are absolutely amazing, the best popcorn I've ever had. And we made him we dried some sriracha sauce in a dehydrator. Yeah, I made him a popcorn, and I sent a picture of the bag. He goes, we absolutely love it. He goes, I want you to move forward. He says, I have 3 requests. 1, I get to approve the packaging. 2, you use my product in your popcorn. And 3, you kick that guy's butt. And you know what? That relationship just changed my life. Because I didn't realize that when I dried his sauce and traded a powder that I was creating something new that didn't exist in the marketplace. So I put that on anything. So I went from popcorn. I was really afraid to ask for the second item because I went to meet these guys and I was like, uh-oh, you know, you can't even say, you say one wrong thing and you're out the door. But I was leaving their office on my second visit, and Donna, who runs the company, she says to me, David, if there's anything else you'd like to do, we'd really support that. I was like, oh, this is great, because I have the potato chip bag designed already, and I had some other ideas, a tortilla chip and some other things. Yeah. So I'm like, fantastic. I went and got my rental car, and I emailed her the potato chip bag and said, how about potato chips? And she goes, oh, this is great, go ahead. So what happened was other companies started calling Hoi Fung and saying, hey, we'd like to partner with you. They go, well, you need to call David Israel. I had the powder, right?
Oh,
I mean, most of these guys needed a powder. They didn't need the sauce. They needed a powder. Yeah. But then it turned out, I was like, this is so weird. I mean, these guys are telling me to talk to all these major companies. I mean, this is bizarre. And then they started telling anybody. They like, well, you get the sauce and you can take care of it with them. So it really did change my life because it put me on a different trajectory. And all these major food companies started reaching out to me. And private equity groups. I mean,
Mr. Sriracha.
Mr. Sriracha, watch that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's great. And so now, what's your day-to-day? What's your day-to-day now? What's your day like?
Well, I have a small team here in the U.S.
I'm based here. All of them here.
We're in Bellevue. Yeah, there's 5 of us. I have partners around the world. I have partners in Russia, I have partners in Japan, Australia, Greece. I mean, Israel, I just licensed.
So what's that partner look like? When you call them a partner, is it they have a product and you have what?
Either I control it because I've licensed them,
okay,
or they're my manufacturer,
okay,
my co-packer, or I've actually partnered with them on either, like the company in India, we've partnered together to manufacture a product together. So
they're manufacturing it.
We're all invested. They're buying the equipment, and and they get a chunk of the company.
Sure.
So there's a lot of different kind of relationships, and I've really the most important thing about anything in life and business is really about relationship. That has really paid dividends for me is building these relationships, and being honorable about them, right? Integrity about it.
Yeah. And where is the, what's the secret sauce, not to use that term, but where's the secret sauce for you to, these partnerships, cultivating them, making sure that, like you say, that you keep them above board? I mean, what's the thing that really makes them work for you that you could, if I said to you, hey, David, what are the top 3 things that I need to do by forming a partnership as a long-lasting partner? What would you say? What were the 2, 3 things?
Well, finding the right partner first.
Sure.
I mean, it's very important that they bring value to the deal. It can't be one-sided.
Sure.
I've had that happen too many times where, I'm driving the boat, I am the boat, I've got the life rafts, I've got everything.
Yeah.
And they're a passenger. They don't want passengers. You want a partner that's there to bring value and to work with you, it's with synergy. I think, I'm not carrying the weight where I used to. I think that I've built enough credibility in the industry where I can partner, with a lot of high-level companies. But my partners are just extremely committed. I think they have the best product, or whatever they're doing for me or we're doing together, they do it the best.
Yeah.
My partner in Japan is the 2nd largest candy company in Japan. And we do a lot. We started out where I licensed them to be my popcorn. They licensed Pop Gourmet.
Sure.
It's evolved. So I'm involved in a company called Nature Box, just on an investor side. And I figured, you know what? Yuha is a great candy company. They call on I don't know how many, multiple, 50,000 or 60,000 doors, and they have a distribution company. Nature Box would be great for that marketplace. So I put the 2 together, right? Yuha is now drying my sauce, and they're making popcorn. So, look, you want people that build with. Red Gold is they make my ketchup, my Hoi Fung ketchup, but they've ended up being a much greater partner than that. When Hoi Fung I told Hoi Fung they needed to do their sauce in the little packets for food service. They said, nah, you do it. So I was like, well, okay. So now I'm selling their sauce.
Sure.
Red Gold partnered with me. They invested.
Yeah.
They manage all that for me. I'm a sales and marketing firm. So I look for partners that I can really connect with, that I can trust, and I think there's value on both sides. Where I bring value, they bring value, and everybody's working together.
And David, in the food, I don't know the food business. I've never had a food company or anything. In the food business, is that normal? Is that like distribution? I'm sure is super important. To get your product out in the field.
Huge.
Got to have distribution partners. Is that normal to? Is it normal? Would it be? Is there 10 other guys like David Israel doing similar things that have lots of partnerships, doing lots of is that fairly normal in the business?
Look, I think it's out there. I think because I have so many different brands and products that we're very dynamic.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're more valuable. Independently there's some value. Hoi Fung is valuable to me and to whoever my shareholders are. The Hoi Fung business is it's scalable, but it's not sellable.
Yeah.
Right? Because Hoi Fung is seriously about relationship. And when David Israel's gone, it's probably gone. I'm not selling it to, I have private equity firms that are coming all the time saying, can we finance you to buy Hoi Fung? Can you introduce us to buy Hoi Fung? And I'm like, here's the deal. That call goes out to Hoi Fung. I'm not doing business with them the next day because they'll find it predatory. So it's about respect and loyalty, right? Yeah. So my relationships are very dynamic.
Yeah.
I think I understand them all independently. When I do business in India, it's a different type of business than I do in Japan.
Yeah.
When I'm doing business in Greece, again, they're all unique and different. In the U.S., you still get all these different types of personalities, right? So Hoi Fung is way different than Red Gold. The group Tahin, which is another company I partner with a lot, they're very different. They're very brand centric and all about their products have to be X, Y, and Z. Where Hoi Fung is also like that. But if I tell them, hey, you know what? I think it's ready for market. You guys, we can't make it hotter, or we don't want to change this. They're like, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Where Tahin is like, no, our whole team has to sign off on this, or it's not going out the door. Yeah. So I just adapt really well and understand my partners, and I try to, like I said, I just try to respect who they are independently.
If you're going to talk to some, say, 25-year-old kid that's got a great food idea that at least, are you going to recommend, you know what, you need to find some distribution partners to start working with? Or
Nope.
No.
Never. Look, distribution is important. You want to get into a marketplace, okay? Yeah. And the food business has changed so much since I came into it. I had no idea what I was doing, which is a positive. Because if I did, I would have been afraid I wouldn't know that most people don't innovate. I started winning awards my second year in business, and there's a show called Sweet and Snacks, and I won Most Innovative Product Award, and I was like, whatever, okay? I put it on my table at the show, and John Malin, who's the CEO of Brown & Haley, came over. He goes, gosh, congratulations. I'm like, well, thanks, man. He goes, thanks, man. He goes, do you understand what you've accomplished? I go, well, I don't know. They liked, what I did. He goes, David, he goes, you competed against Mars. You competed against, all these great brands, and all these people here, and some of them have been here for 30 years and never won anything. He goes, this is an accomplishment. Yeah. And I was just dumb, so I was like, oh, okay. They thought that,
my stuff was good. Yeah.
Whatever my fire corn was, which was a popcorn that I blended with, jalapenos, and we popped them together so that the jalapeno flavored the popcorn, and you got this, crispy jalapeno with it, right? So, okay, I thought it was cool, but it was innovative. Yeah. But that was what we did. We just liked to come up with things creative that didn't exist in the industry so we could stand out.
Yeah.
So no, I think you just have to come up with a product. You have to make sure it's great. You have to make sure it's scalable. You got to put a lot of thought into that, right? If you create a product that you can't scale, unless that's your goal, which is fine too. You can sell regionally, that's great.
Yeah, a lifestyle business.
Yeah, but you want to think it through about how you're going to get it to what your end game is.
Yeah.
But distribution will come. Trust me. I had no distribution, and when I decided to do this white truffle popcorn because I wanted to get more creative, and then I found out that Oprah liked white truffle, so I sent it back to O Magazine.
Sure.
She started buying it, and then she put us in the magazine. It was like our 7th month in business or 8th month in business, and boom, you know, I mean, I was in 3,000 stores like overnight, right? And distribution came after that. I mean, the distributors were forced. So if you have a great product, the consumer will drive to distribution.
Yeah, they'll find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. And where is your, like, what's next?
So right now, look, I have 3 focuses. I've really, sounds, I don't know if that sounds like a lot or not. I mean, I still manage all of the high-level stuff for Pop Gourmet, all of the new branding, the new brand business relationships. So with Clorox, we're close to doing a Hidden Valley Ranch chip. With Cholula, we're talking about doing some popcorn. So these brands are coming to me because of what I did with Hoi Fun. I mean, they think that like I'm this, you know, guru, because I just keep coming up with things to do with Hoi Fun. I mean, so I have BFY, which started when I left Pop. I was going to focus on better for you products, but I took all of the Hoi Fun, anything that wasn't, I left them with chips and popcorn, and everything came with me. Because I wanted to develop everything. The partners didn't want to stay within Pop, and Hoi Fung didn't want Pop managing anything that I wasn't in charge of. So I started pursuing more and more with Hoi Fung. So we've launched a hummus. I brought a prop, chocolate bars, salts, seasonings. The hummus went into Costco, was our first customer, which is really unheard of for Costco to be that aggressive. I mean, they like to see it somewhere else in the marketplace. We just showed it by happenstance. We brought samples. My Israeli partners were in town. It's made in Israel, by the way. And
interesting.
Yeah, what's a real authentic hummus? So,
so why not make it there?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we make it there, and Costco picked it up like that. Launched it at Super Bowl, and now we're going into 3 other regions. But I had an idea 2 weeks ago, and I threw it by Hoi Fung. I thought, how cool would it be to have a Hoi Fung Sriracha food truck? So they said, go for it. So we'll be launching Hoi Fung Sriracha food trucks probably in Q3. My partner, Lindsay Schwartz, who has a restaurant. I don't know what I'm doing in restaurants, but together we can figure it out. And I think, you know, we have interest from other areas that would like to license it. So we have that. So BFY does that.
Yeah.
BFY also invests in other companies like Nature Box. But then I ended up investing in a company unintentionally.
And not to interrupt,
Sure.
do you do a lot of investing, or is that just kind of?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, look, most of my dollars go to what I'm doing.
I would expect.
But if I see something that is intriguing, and I definitely want to be a piece of, I do it.
Yeah.
So Nature Box was something, but that grew into something else. Actually, I went down there to talk to their management team, kind of like a fireside chat like this. The CEO invited me down. And when I left, I was like, I got to get involved in this company. So,
really?
Yeah.
That's great.
And so I invested in that. But then the Healy's, who were Kettle Chips, his nephew they said he had some new technology, and he reached out to see if I would help him with a product. And I went over to Bend, Oregon to meet with him, and he's got this technology that turns avocados or guacamole into chips or puffs or crackers or whatever. And I tried it, and it was remarkable. But he has no idea what he's a mechanical engineer. He gets all that, but he doesn't understand the food business. So he's like, "Would you get involved with me?" And I'm like, "Well, I get involved." I said, "I got to be part of this." So we partnered up about 5 months ago. We're launching the products. The company's called Avo Love, and we're launching our Avo chips at Expo West in a few weeks. So we have that focus, and then I have my vegan or non-dairy cheese products, which was another company. A group out of Australia had reached out to me to help them launch in the U.S. It was called Culinary Co. And they had no idea what they were doing. I mean, for the U.S. market. They really did well there, but they had no clue how the U.S. market. They were like trying for 2 years with this really great product. I was like, vegan cheese. I was like, I don't think so, right? But I flew down and met the guy in L.A., and my introduction to the product was he brought out 2 pizzas and he said, "Tell me which one's fake." and I couldn't.
Couldn't. Yeah.
No. So I said, okay,
You got me.
I'll help you.
Yeah.
I tried to help him for 3 or 4 months. I ended up buying the U.S.
U.S. rights or
All the market, like 5 markets, right?
Yeah.
They've given me a lot more than that. It's produced in Greece. Part of the family is in Australia, and it's now called Good Planet with a small e because it's a plant-based product, and the plant-based category is on fire. So, tons of acquisitions, a lot of growth opportunity.
Yeah.
And I rebranded it and launched it about 2 months ago, and we're launching into the retailers. We launched it at Fancy Food Show about 3 weeks ago, and it just took off.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 focuses right now.
And so are you in, if you're sitting in the office, are you a marketing branding guy? Are you what's like, where do you like to spend your, like, where do you think your biggest asset is if you're, sitting there in the office? Is it helping design the packaging? I mean, what is it?
I help with everything.
Sure.
I've learned, I learned because of my history. I've learned that I don't want people telling me what to do, because if they're wrong and I listen to them, I'm going to be really pissed. And I don't want to say what I would probably say to them. I'd rather get that information, process it, and make the decision myself so I can look in the mirror and say I screwed up.
Yeah.
It was just better for me to operate that way.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm really resilient, and I'm really good at getting run over by trucks. I'm good at failing.
Sure.
Because I look at failures of, okay, I can't do that again. It's the next step, right? So I no fear of failure whatsoever, zero. I just look at it, like I said, I mean,
It's part of life.
failure can be permanent, or it can be as, hey, that was a lesson I need, that helps me get better, right? So I like everybody to weigh in, but at the end of the day, I think I have a pretty good gut, because I learned the food industry like I learned the pawn industry, okay? Like I learned the jewelry industry. I learned it from scratch, and by navigating and getting bounced around and figuring out which way works better, or who's being successful and how to do it better than they did, or or take what they did and do it in a different category. And the consumer trends, look, do I listen? A little bit, because they change so quickly. And once it's broadcasted, everybody and their brother jumps in. So there's a new consumer trend, right?
Do you walk through the grocery store looking at things and like, that's a good package. That's a good package.
I do, because that was like my biggest first lesson was I had a great product and I had some really cruddy packaging, I had this great popcorn, it was marvelous. And I was putting it in these clear bags because the guy said it has a 12-month shelf life. Well, you know what? That might be true with a chocolate or a caramel. But for a popcorn that's getting the light that's in stores, the heat, all these things impact air gets in these plastic bags. So some of my products were deteriorating in 60 days. So packaging, branding, and design is critical, right? That's what I learned, especially in food. People walk by, they connect with your packaging first, okay? Then they have to like what's inside.
Yeah, and I actually talked to a guy a couple weeks ago, and I was just talking to him because I knew I was interviewing you, and he's a food guy. Mm-hmm. And I asked him that question, like, what's the most important thing? He goes, absolutely by far is packaging, because they don't touch your they don't touch your product until they pick it up.
Nope.
So they have to pick it up.
It has to be attractive.
Yeah.
It has to have the right message. So generic messages are great because you appeal to more people. But that was a tough lesson, and I also learned not to rely on branding people. Because you know what? Most of them go down one path and all their designs are pretty narrow, right? Look at RX bars. They just sold to Hershey's, I think, for $600 million. They're about 3 years old or 4 years old. It was all about the packaging, Okay, it had 3 or 4 ingredients. You know what? There's a lot of products out there in the bar category that have 3 or 4 ingredients. It was the packaging that was connecting with the consumer. And it wasn't done by some great branding.
No.
It was some guy that they went to, said, hey, I think this is cool. And you know what? It was cool. So there's no reason to go out and spend $60,000 or $200,000 on your branding. You have to understand the category you're in, and I think that I've got a pretty good feel for it. Now, it's not the best. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I get what the consumer's looking for based on what I see in the marketplace, right? So if that guy in the chocolate bars is doing well, then I can take that and probably somehow,
There's a piece of that might work
yeah,
on
I twist it a little bit on my cheese. Right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so let's jump back into the interesting part of your background.
Yep.
I'll just let you explain how that happened in your words.
Well, so listen, it should have never happened.
But it did.
It was a perfect storm, but I'm really glad it did happen. I mean, I would not change anything.
Yeah.
But I'm a really fortunate guy, So at Pawn Exchange, in our third month in business, a Bellevue jeweler, a very reputable Bellevue jeweler, sends over a guy to sell us some inventory. This is great because you don't have inventory until people start defaulting on loans or until they've sold you enough to where it's been in the 30-day waiting period until it goes through the process and goes back out into your showcase, no matter what it is. Or until a vendor comes by and sells you merchandise at a price where you can put it in your thing. So we were acquiring all kinds of products. I mean, bikes, lawnmowers, tools from other sources so we could build inventories in our stores. I mean, an empty store doesn't do very well.
Yeah.
So a reputable, who I had a connection to, I had actually loaned them, well, they were very reputable, but I did loan them money, sent a guy over and he sold us some inventory and I can't get into this really lengthy, it's a really long story. We bought the inventory. We put it in our showcase. We went on, some other things happened, but we went on with life, okay? This guy vanished because he tried to blackmail us after he sold the inventory because he got in trouble. I called the attorney says, just tell him to go take a hike.
Forget about it.
Yeah. Off he went. 3 years later, in 1996, I just raised all this capital. We're growing like wildfire. I'm out schmoozing with Howard Schultz and with Jeff Brabham and John Meisenbaugh. We're all buddy. I think like I'm the coolest cat. I'm embarrassed. I mean, really became arrogant, and I came from a very poor background, so I think I was pretty insecure. So I had a need that was filling, because I mean, banks were kissing everybody. I couldn't even believe who was trying to have lunch with me.
Yeah.
People didn't want to talk to me before. All of a sudden, I was like a god. And it wasn't because of who I am, it's because of who I'm hanging out with, right? Who my investors are.
Sure.
But, I was still kind of too immature to connect the dots. So, anyway, I'm on fire. I won the Emerging Business of the Year award in Bellevue, which was huge at the time. The Puget Sound Business Bureau's doing stuff on me. I mean, I think I'm just cool. And all of a sudden, I hear this rumor that I'm under investigation by the Seattle police. So I'm like, well, that's weird. So I called the Seattle police.
Call me?
I did. I called them up. I'm like, hey, I heard from another pawnbroker that you guys are investigating me. I go, do you want to talk? And they're like, oh, what a bunch of crap. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I'm like, okay, the other pawnbroker just wants to agitate me.
Yeah.
I'm off of my business. Well,
not so much.
I get a call in my office, which is weird because it was just in another building across the way here. The manager calls me up and says, David, there's a prosecutor here, and they want to take the computer. I'm like, this is weird. I go, well, let me talk to him. And they go, her. I go, her. Let me talk to her. She gets on. She goes, David? I go, yes. She goes, we're here to, I go, we'll help you however you want. Not a problem. I go, what's this all about? We can't tell you. We just want to take your computer. And the manager, I said, no problem. I said, how long do you need it for? Because it puts us out of business. She goes, we'll take it, we'll copy it, we'll bring it back tomorrow. I'm like, great, no problem. 2 days later, they pick up my oldest and best friend who came to work with me, and his family invested some money. They pick him up and bring him in for questioning. And I'm like, well, this is really bizarre, He gets out, he calls me up and says, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay. I go, what's up? He goes, no, I need to meet you in person. I go, all right. So I go down to Goodwill on Dearborn, and it's dark and rainy in December or whatever,
Why
November.
Goodwill?
Because it was near his apartment or something.
Okay.
So I go down there. He gets out of his car, gets in my car, and he goes, well, they're asking all these questions. I don't know what to do. I go, well, what? I go, did you tell him the truth? He goes, yeah, I told him the truth. I go, okay, well, then there's no problem. And he gets out of the car. He goes, but your life is in my hands. And he walked off. I go, that was weird. Why would he say that? Right? Well, the next day, I learned that they're going to be charging me with receiving stolen property from 3 years ago from this guy. So anyway, long story short, I say they want to make me a deal for 90 days, whatever that meant at the time, and receiving stolen property. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen.
Because I didn't feel like I did anything wrong.
Well, no, I mean, not intentionally.
Yeah.
But it grew because the dynamics in the situation was, there's a lot of coincidences. So end of the day, the guy who implicated me, who was in prison, trying to get his way out of prison, he got immunity from any crimes that he confessed to, which were massive at the end of the day. But he also was in prison, and he talks to his counselor. So we decided to go to trial. I mean, I'm like, I'm going to fight whatever. So they then turned it into conspiracy charges. But we hired an investigator, and the investigator goes out to the prison and talks to this guy's, they have called a counselor. And the counselor says, oh, God, he goes, Vince told us that he made this all up and bought himself out of trouble. Well, that was a home run for me. So we said, okay, let's go to trial. And the prosecutor says, well, take 90 days. I'm like, well, no, this is a slam dunk. So we rushed to trial in 1997, which is about 3 months later or 2 months later. We show up, and the prosecutor says to the judge, hey, we're going to contest this guy's witness because we think it's either hearsay or privileged information. And the judge says, nah, I'm going to allow it. And she goes, well, then we're going to ask for a recess. And they went over to the Court of Appeals and they appealed it. So I left the next day for 3 years. It was in appeals. And I stepped away from pawn exchange because I didn't want this to impact my investors.
Sure.
So about 2 months later, I understood it could be 2 or 3 years. I started another company called Driving Impressions. So if you ever see Food Services of America trucks or Costco trucks, they have a tension banner on the side. We created and patented the frame, so they could switch out their signs. So I did that for about 3 years. The appeal came back. The prosecutor won. And now the deal changed. It changed from receiving stolen property in 90 days to the conspiracy charge and 2 years. And we're like, no, not going to happen. So we decided to go to trial. And I went to trial in 1999. Yeah, and or maybe it was 2000. In 2000, excuse me. March of 2000. Had a 6-week trial, and this guy did not testify because they tried to revoke his immunity because they said he was a liar.
Sure.
So, at any rate, I go to trial, 5 weeks, 2-week jury deliberations. They decide to find me guilty, and I had not been arrested. I had not been to jail. And these are some very serious charges the conspiracy covers. The judge said, hold on. The bailiffs right away come to grab me. He's like, nope, Mr. Israel's going to go home, and we're going to give him time to get his family and finances in order, and then we'll have a hearing date. And he's asked my attorney how long we need. The attorney says, I don't know, how about 90 days? He says, you got it. So my wife and I went home, and we took that time to get I had 2 young kids. By this time, they were 3 and 8 or 7. So they didn't know what was going on. We kept it really well hidden. So anyway, we took this time to have family time together. 4 months later, about 2 weeks before my sentencing hearing, which I know is going to be anywhere between 7 and 13 years, I'm sitting at a hotel in Yakima, and we're out in the sun with our kids, and I get a call from my attorney, and he says, are you sitting down? I go, well, I'm laying down because I'm in the sun. He says, well, I have some news. I go, well, how much worse can it get, right? I mean, it's over. He goes, no, the guy that implicated you wrote a letter to the judge, he wrote a letter to the Seattle Times, and he's called us, and he wants to clear your name. He wants to come forward. So now the judge postpones this for another 90 days because the guy's in prison. And they set up this hearing, they bring him in. Anyway, he doesn't end up getting to testify because the prosecutor says he should invoke his Fifth Amendment right because they're in appeals over his immunity, and if he testifies, they'll use that against his immunity. So the judge reverses the verdicts because of the letters and because of the phone calls and who else could call from this prison. So I'm like, this is great. I mean, my life is back, right? But the prosecutor appealed that decision.
And won.
Another 3 years. She did not win, by the way. Oh. But I had another 3 years, so I started another company because I couldn't get a job. And it was called Home Pro Services. And I grew it from, in 2003, I started out as a janitor cleaning facilities at condominium complexes. I'm a pretty anal guy, I clean really well. So I went from one place to 3 places to 45 places in the first year. Then I grew into about 460 complexes in Western Washington. I had 45 employees, and I ended up with an electrical license, a plumbing license, and a contractor's license. And I managed everything under one roof with just one call, all this service, right?
That's great.
So we did about $4 million in sales or services within that 3-year period. And then in 2003, in June of 2003, the appellate court came back. They ruled in, she lost her appeal. But guess what? She had the right to retry me. And I had spent $1.2 million in cash in the criminal world. They're not sending you bills. I mean, you pay up front. So between appellate attorneys and investigators and everything, I mean, I had spent $1.2 million in cash. And I called an attorney who actually was weird. He was on my flight 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago when I went to New York. I looked back and there he was, like, oh, this is so weird. I hadn't seen him. I called him up. I go, hey, I need an attorney. I said, well, he goes, $700,000. And he goes, you should be a slam dunk. Well, I heard a slam dunk 3 years ago, and it wasn't a slam dunk. Yeah. And 13 years and all that. I had 7 years under this gray cloud of everybody looking at me weird, and I had, really it was just bizarre, So I said to my wife, I can't do this anymore. I really can't. I mean, I need a closure. So I did hire the guy, but I told him I just wanted to make a deal.
Best deal he could do.
Yeah, so he calls her up. She says, okay, plead guilty, it's 18 months. I said, no, I'm not pleading guilty. I said, it's just not going to happen. And we negotiated for a while, and you know what? I ended up pleading no contest, or Alford plea. It was 60 months in Washington State Prison, but I knew with good behavior I would be out in 46, and I was planning on having good behavior, but I was not saying guilty. If I said guilty, I couldn't appeal. My plan was to appeal anyway, so I figured, okay, I get in, I appeal, I win, I'm out in 12 months, whatever. That's kind of my plan. I was optimistic, kind of like in business. That didn't work out so well.
That didn't work out so
my
well.
appeal wasn't going as fast or as well. So, yeah, I was there for 4 years, and I learned a lot about myself and about people and about the system. I tell people all the time, it made me a much stronger entrepreneur because, all the things that bug you, the small stuff that you're afraid of, and, I was like,
it's not a big deal.
It's out of your control, so I don't sweat it anymore, right? And the big stuff, well, that's really not my control either. So I really learned how to manage people better. I mean, problems, problem solve, deal with issues. And in my 4th year there, I was in minimum security. I went from maximum to medium to minimum. And I didn't want to move out of either one, by the way, because I got comfortable. I was like, yeah, I'll just stay here. But they're like, no, you're going to medium. So I moved down pretty quickly. And I got to minimum. I literally built these relationships.
Yeah, people
on both sides. I mean, I felt like I was the CEO of the place because I did. I mean, I was I was the guy welcoming people off the bus to tell them how they're going to get their jobs and where they go. I was doing everything in this place. They were giving they give me the conference room to have my birthdays in with my family. It was bizarre. So, but I built these great relationships with these guys. I mean, really. I mean, I was like, there's great people here. There's great guys here. Yeah. And I learned a lot about the system, which changed me. My wife and I had a great plan, so our relationship got stronger. Our kids did really well. We kept them in private schools to make sure they were isolated from me or my stuff. Yeah. And in about 6 months before I was going home, these guys came and they started making this popcorn in the microwave. And you could buy bags of caramel. You could buy all kinds of stuff. So they would take microwave popcorn. They would melt caramel in the microwave. They'd blend in peanut butter. They'd mix it in a big garbage bag. They would throw in M&M's, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and chopped up Rocky Road candy bars. and they would trade it out, and guys would like line up to trade out for this stuff,
Sure.
right? Yeah. And I would never eat. I followed a really strict diet, so one day a week I would pig out, and it never fell on my pig out day. And then one day, my roommate gets it, which I'm the only guy that called people roommates. You're supposed to call them cellies or cellies. I was like, not going to work for me. I'm going to live this my way. Anyway, this guy Vince gets this bag. He's like, you got to try this stuff. I'm like, okay, it's my day. And I took a bag, and I'm sitting there on my bed. And I was like, wow, this is really good. I mean, this could be like a Cold Stone Creamery of popcorn. So I had my team at Home Pro start sending me information on the popcorn industry. I wrote a 3-page business plan. I called it POP with 2 P's because I was trying to be creative, which I changed later. Came home in late 2007, went back to my Home Pro business where I was getting ripped off, and I really couldn't operate Home Pro because the homeowners associations and the management teams really don't want a felon who just got out of prison for conspiracy to commit robbery going into people's homes doing work. So I sold it off, the pieces, all the different businesses I sold off over 2 years. And then I went to work for Cash America for about 7 months, opening up locations because I was really good at finding locations. And then they turned off the pipe because of the economy. They decided not to grow and stop. So I decided it was time to start POP.
Good timing.
Yep. So in 2011, I decided to do POP Gourmet, and I launched the Big House out of my kitchen. I decided the product was going to call it the Big House Mix. And I went to my local Thriftway store up in Lakemont and dropped it off. And the manager tried it, and I called him up a few days later. I said, hey, what do you think? He goes, yeah, we like it. I go, well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you 3 cases, try it out. If you like it, you can buy it. He goes, no, we'll buy it. So he started buying my Big House Mix. And then they put it into 3 or 4 stores. And I was like, this is so cool. I mean, they were doing demos, and I would see families, and the kids would be eating my Big House. And I'm like, they're eating the Big House, right? But I was like, great. And I saw it I started looking at the shelf where my popcorn was. I'm like, I mean, what does it mean to anybody? I mean, what does Big House mean, right? I mean, you got to read in really small print, M&Ms and peanut butter caramel. I was like, I got to do something better. And I was just blending in with all the caramels. Sure. And I went home. I said to my wife, Julie, I got to do something different. She goes, well, do some trendier flavors. This is like 3 months in business. I go, like what? She goes, well, think of some trendy flavors. Truffles. I go, well, Fran's, their chocolate salted caramels are doing great. I said, that'd probably be good. She goes, that white truffle's really trendy right now. I go, okay. So I made white truffle, really high end. And I made this chocolate salted caramel, really high end. And I took that to the store. And it started doing really well. And then a couple other Bartels wanted it all of a sudden because somebody saw it. And some guy from Safeco wanted it. And then I'd heard that Oprah liked white truffle, so I sent it back to Oprah. And poof, it just went haywire. And then I started getting credibility pretty quickly, so I could reach out to an almond roca because I really wanted to stand out, and I wanted to ride the coattails of great. I tried Oreo first because I had this great Oreo popcorn, but Oreo was like, "What are your sales?" I'm like, "They're going to be 250,000 this year." They go, "Sorry, not quite what we, you're not." And do you have food safety? I'm like, "Oh, we wear hairnets," and they're like. They're like, no, that's not what we need. I'm like, foods. Well, what more would you want? I got gloves and hairnets.
Yeah, exactly. What more do you need?
This is great.
Yeah, exactly. What more do you need?
Yeah.
Feel free to ask questions, you guys. If you want some questions, we can open up for questions. That's such an awesome story. Just to get through that kind of the crap that goes along with that, right?
It was great. I hired my first roommate who never had a job before in his life. His name is Dyrell. And we were in our cell together. We were locked down. And we were sitting there talking one day. And he's like, you're like my hero. You did a pawn exchange. You're a businessman. I go, well, what did you do? He goes, well, I sold drugs. I go, well.
Entrepreneurial.
I go, that's a business. He goes, well, how's that? I go, well, you had customers, you had receivables, you had payables, you had distributors, you had to manage all this stuff, you had inventory. I go, you did business, you just chose the wrong product. He goes, wow. He goes, I never thought of it that way. I go, well, dude, You just need to find a different product. So I hired him. We worked together for 4 years. Well, he worked for me at Home Pro first. Then he decided he didn't have patience and didn't like earning $15 an hour, so he decided to sell drugs again. And he went back for a year. Then he came back, and I had Pop. So I brought him back on, and he promised me he would be steadfast. I gave him a chunk of the company, and he started with me, and we grew into about, I don't know, maybe 70 employees.
Wow.
And he grew into a vice president's position. But, you know, he lost his temper with our CFO one day, which he was right, but, you know, we were trying to handle ourselves and conduct ourselves a little differently. And I told him he had to go. So he did, and he started another business, like my janitorial business. He went and did that.
Oh, sure.
And he ended up selling out for about $400,000.
Good for him.
His shares, and he's got a great life. He's married, has 2 kids, and he's doing great. But I ended up hiring probably over 150 people that were transitioning out of prison because, look, when I came home, they tried to go out of it's pretty isolated. I mean, it was pretty rampant at a time where these guys really felt powerful and they wanted to trip you up rather than see you be successful. My guy did not want me to be successful, and he was already pissed because I was going to work at my own company, and, you know, so he did everything he could to try to prevent me. I was like, this is weird. You know, why would he want to stop me from being successful with my family? And just, you know, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
But I saw that happen a lot with a lot of great people, a lot of smart guys, where they would say, I want to change my life. I don't want to ever do this again to my family or my wife or my kids or whatever. And they would come out and they would come back. I said, what happened? Well, I tried to get a job and they wouldn't give me a license. I couldn't drive, or I got a car and they said I couldn't drive out of the county, or I got this job and then they picked me up and made me do a class for 2 weeks, so I got fired from the job. I'm like, well, this is bizarre. So I decided that I was going to give people opportunities and give them jobs. And then I did that for a long time. And the Department of Corrections, the secretary of the Department of Corrections, calls me up. And he asks if we could have a meeting. And I go, sure, come to my factory, we'll have a meeting. And I hung up, and I'm like, wow, the Department of Corrections secretary wants to meet with me. They go, what for? I go, I didn't ask. They're like, why not? I go, because who cares? I mean, you know, I want to see what's up. So they came with this team with 4 of his people. And they go, look, you have really done some remarkable things. You know, we want you to help us innovate the transition process, the reentry process. What would you help? So I started working with them, and it just kind of grew, where I became this somewhat expert on reentry and changing the attitude of businesses, of people, because you know what? If we keep doing the same, if we don't want crime, then you've got to let people find their way out of that crime. I mean, there's still going to be guys, trust me, that's all they want to do. They're never going to change, all right? But there are a lot of guys that either were victims of environment or grew up or made a mistake, all right? They don't want to do it again, but somehow society or the system doesn't let them get back on track. So I decided I had to change that. And I've talked all around the country with Dave's Killer Bread Foundation. I started a foundation with a group, but I resigned because they were going in a different direction. They wanted to hire people versus change minds, right? I'm about changing minds. I'm about innovating. So I still work with the Department of Corrections. I still work with Dave's Killer Bread and a lot of other reentry kind of groups. But I want to change the way that people come back so they have opportunities, so they don't go back to committing crime. It impacts us.
Yeah, exactly.
They pay taxes. And it's really been remarkable.
Yeah, that's great. Questions, guys?
So I work at the DLC for helping women get housing and jobs after, right? And so I looked up what's up next. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, uh-huh.
So are you saying you're not part of that?
No, I resigned about 2 months ago.
Okay, so
Yeah.
my personal assistant from the DLC.
Yeah.
I've been in 4th and 5th, so I understand the system a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So what do you think is the answer to getting the message out?
Look, you know, I was just having a conversation earlier about what, you know, you think something like, what were we talking about? Bitcoin, right? Cryptocurrency. I'm like, I don't get it, so I don't connect with it. Right. So when I've been out trying to change businesses' minds, right? So when Starbucks starts saying we're going to hire these people,
Will they?
yep. Mod Pizza, yep.
Absolutely.
Whoever they are. Are they here?
No, I don't think so.
I know who I can send them to.
Yep. So do you work with correctional industries?
With Department of Corrections. Yeah, they give $500 vouchers when they get out of jail to get housing.
Uh-huh.
So I help them get housing.
Oh, great. So do you know I work with Danielle Armbruster.
I don't know anybody. This is me.
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
It's me, like me.
Uh-huh.
So I'm doing my 501c3 this week.
Uh-huh.
I've been doing it for 3 years, and I see lives, not just one life, it's their family's life.
Yep.
It's their parents, their children, their everything.
Absolutely.
Their friends. One little help I do changes so much. It's like that ripple effect. And I'm like, it's just a little me, you know? Now I realize I've been doing it for a while, and I see what I can do and impact. So that's what I'm here tonight, Michael.
Yeah, no worries.
But so I came because of you, and so I looked at what's up next. Because I'm like, there's people, sorry everybody, this is, but people don't understand. It's like one decision changes your life.
Yep.
So you probably shouldn't have been in prison. You're the guy and you're making a difference, right? And so my one not good decision, me in prison, very short time.
Wow.
So that's why I say 14 years.
Congratulations to you for what you're doing.
As street cred, I know what wrap it in. Wrap me in. Like, I know that. I know the bologna sandwich. I know work release. I know all that. Right? But people then, sorry, but people then I can talk to these girls. So like the females, and a specific population when they get off heroin or meth, help those people. But I've been doing it for a few years, and so it's been the most powerful thing I've ever done in my life. And so so now I'm here because I want to know how do we make it bigger and more approachable?
So,
Because you and I, we don't look like we've been in jail.
yeah, you know, I drop that bomb all the time. It's some people Google right away, and they can tell me about me. First of all, thank you for doing. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Man, I was diamond big. I was like hustling diamonds back then.
Oh, you were. Thanks. So hey, that's why I don't. That business sucks. Listen. I started What's Next to be this hub so we could bring the groups together to collaborate because there's a lot of use. There's more power in numbers, right? So I wanted to bring everybody together. That was my goal. That's why the Department of Corrections and Correctional Industries were supportive, and they'll come in and support this. So, I should introduce you to Correctional Industries because they'll support you and help connect the dots and probably.
Sorry,
Yeah.
everybody, but I think because I do want to make a difference. And
Okay.
I can see the difference that it can make.
Just
Absolutely.
connect. We can connect afterwards. Let's get a question. Go ahead.
You talked about being good at finding locations and dialing into what the consumer wants in your categories.
Mhm.
Can you expand more on that process, what that's like for you?
So, okay. Well, in locations, that was really retail. That was what Pawn Exchange was all about. I mean, I had a good feel for where it belongs. So it wasn't, even my store in Bellevue did really well, where everybody said you can't open a store in Bellevue. It killed it because it was just, there were people coming in, borrowing $20,000, different people for different reasons, right? So I had a good sense of what that is. In food, do I have that sense? I don't know, probably not. In products, for Hoi Fun, look, whatever, it's just a golden brand. It's iconic, okay? I almost had to deal with Valspar to do paints, okay? I mean, they buy pajamas at Target. I can slap that logo and that iconic brand on something. It's going to sell, all right? For Good Planet, it was Culinary Co. And it was really, the product was killer and people liked it. But it wasn't until I understood the category. It's not just vegans. It's not just those who are lactose intolerant. It's not those who have allergens, right? Because we're allergen free, we're coconut milk or coconut oil based. But I learned that a huge number of the people buying these plant-based products are doing it because it's good for the planet. One of the biggest impact on our environment and our ozone layer is the dairy industry. I didn't know that when I jumped in. When I figured it out, it's Good Planet, it's plant-based, small e, you see the plant, you see the planet, it's good for the planet. It makes a connection, right? It has a story I can tell. So it was having that. My competitors are VitalLife, Dea, Follow Your Heart. Okay, so, my message to me was much broader and made a connection with the consumer.
So it's really understanding that consumer, that segment.
You want
right?
to connect with the consumer. You
Yeah.
want it. You want your product. It's got to be great. And I got to tell you, I mean, our product is, hands down the best product in the market. It's very competitive, but the brand is what's going to connect with the consumer, the buyers, and it's worked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you really have to understand your category. You got to connect the dots, right? I mean, not just for yourself. I mean, a lot of people do messaging that is all about them, okay? It can't be all about you. I mean, what's all about you is putting out a great product and being successful and helping whatever your goal is, right? To better for you, for the consumer, better for you, better for the planet, whatever it is, okay? But the message, I mean, Tina's, great cookie. I mean, sorry, well, actually that might work. Tina's great cookies. That's a bad example, but if you call it Barbie's because that's your kid's name, then that's it. It doesn't work. It's got to be a connection to the consumer and the buyer.
Back.
Are there other food entrepreneurs that have inspired you or do inspire you?
Well, I mean, God, I don't want to sound like a jerk. No, you know what? Listen, I mean, I look what's going on in the market, okay? And yes, I've been inspired by people and their success and what they've overcome and how well they've done, okay? I mean, Angie's Boom Chicka Pop was much more successful than Pop Gourmet, and I had a better product, right? But I didn't connect with the private equity group as soon as she did. And so she's off to the races, and we're still trying to grow, right? But no, I'm just one of those people that I kind of internalize and think through things myself. And I mean, I look at other people's successes and try to figure out how I can apply maybe, what they've done in maybe my category. But I'm not ever trying to replicate somebody in my category.
Real quick one, kind of follow-up.
Yep.
Have you heard of Chef Gordon Supermensch? Has anybody here heard of this?
I have not.
The guy is Alice Cooper, the rock star's manager, business guy through and through, but he kind of created the celebrity chef movement.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to some of your stuff coming from a pure business background and then moving into food and whatnot, Chef is a lot like that, FYI.
Huh.
It's called Supermensch is the movie. It's very good.
Really? Cool. Thank you.
One more question. Go ahead.
So I heard you speak a lot about relationships and partnership and trust.
Yep.
And I was just interested in a couple aspects of that in growing a business.
Mm-hmm.
How do you determine whether you can trust people?
Mm.
And as people you want to really partner with.
Yep.
And go forward with.
Whew. People have been the toughest thing for me, okay? Growing Pop, I hired experts all along the way. Experts I hired 2 executives from Sahali, because a friend of mine was one of the founders of Sahali. When they sold the Sahali Snacks, local company.
Those are great nuts.
Yeah, they really did well. Who did they sell to? I forget now. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I hired 2 of their executives that literally almost put us out of business. Because, look, I do things different. I hired a lot of people that had experts that didn't have the right advice for what we're trying to do, okay? What made us successful, okay? A company that's been solidified and is in the marketplace is different than a fast-growing, innovative company. You can take your time and make sure the next product is just when. For a growing, I wanted things in the marketplace. I didn't care. I went out with the product and a picture of the bag that was coming later. I mean, I just wanted it. I wanted people to know what was coming. I captured their interest. And you know what? They say, when can you ship? You place an order, I'll have the bags here in 8 weeks. It's off to you, okay? We just did things really quickly. They didn't like that. I had other people that said you can't. So when I was in O Magazine, okay, literally a day after it came out, I get a call, and I'm in this really small place in Renton, and I answer the phone, and it's, hi, who would I speak to about placing? I said, well, I can help you. Okay, this is Elizabeth with TJ Maxx, and I want to order your popcorn. I saw it in O Magazine. I'm like, okay. I'm like, who is it?
Who's
She
pulling the
goes-
joke
she goes,
over?
yeah, this is, I go, you guys don't carry food. She goes, we carry lots of food. I go, you do? She goes, and we have 2,500 stores that I'll put you in. I go, okay. She goes, can you deliver 2,500 stores? I go, absolutely. No. We have a loading dock. I mean, we went from, at that time, we went from 11 employees to 30 employees, like literally in a week, because I took the order. I hung up, and this person I had hired who had 30 years experience, she came from Starbucks, said, you can't sell it to TJ Maxx. I said, well, why not? She goes, well, if you sell to TJ Maxx, it's a discounter. None of the other specialty stores will want to buy you. I go, wow. I go, well, I'll tell you what.
We'll give it a shot.
No. I said, you have 2 hours to come back with a replacement order for 2,500 stores, and I won't ship them. And she goes, well, that's not possible. I go, you're right. So we shipped them, and you know what happened? Honest to God. I mean, she was like, yeah, you're going to be sorry. You're going to be sorry. I'm like, you know what? Won't even use her name. I said, I want to sell product, okay? I have investors. I want to get this product out there. I'm not saying no to 2,500 stores. First of all, our margins were better than any other place at TJ Maxx because they paid more. We don't have a distributor, and they picked it up. So I didn't have freight. Was in the stores a week, and I started getting phone calls from Dean and DeLuca because their buyer was in TJ Maxx and said, we want to carry your product. And I started getting buyers that way from TJ Maxx, and it grew that way organically. And distributors. I mean, it took off. She was dead wrong. So I was so ignorant, I didn't know. I just wanted to do business. That way a business worked. Nobody discounted me. As far as because I was in TJ Maxx, they didn't care. And if you go to TJ Maxx now, everybody's in there. You know, there's not that fear of being in there. Dilettante they want to grow that business. They're great partners.
So I'm hearing what you're saying about trust is like one, you really trust yourself.
Have to.
And you really trust when you've got a good feeling about something and stuff happens and you're excited about it and you want to do it and you put your word onto it, you're just going to do it.
Yeah.
And if somebody can like bring something that's more exciting to that and bring you a better deal that's also exciting to you, yeah, I think you'll go with that. But if they're just like raining on your parade, like, hey, like step
Look,
aside.
it's your dream. And let me clarify this a bit.
Okay.
The relationships I have with companies, those are different. Okay, you know, I mean, now I'm dealing with Crafts and Kellogg's and stuff like that, and all these different. They're all individual. You have to respect how they do business. Okay, and you build a mutual trust, and it's based on integrity. Okay, Hoi Fung is obviously a unique one, so I've learned a lot. People that you're bringing into your into your own culture have to be a good fit. They need to earn your trust. It's a two-way street, right? I mean, the four guys that are with me now, well, one just got out of prison. I met him in an entrepreneurial program that I put on there. So he's there, and I keep saying he's a killer. He's not a killer, but he's killing it, okay? I mean,
He's killing it.
yeah. I go, this guy is killer. And like, whoa, really? I'm like, no, I didn't mean it that way. The other three guys are people that have worked with me from almost day one at Pop Gourmet. One was my VP of sales. He came with me. The other one his name is Sachin. He was my second employee. He grew into a VP position. He's there with me. And the other woman, she was like my third employee. So we've built trust. And I know that they're going to support me. And they know that I'm just going to go do it. I mean, they can laugh at me a lot. I mean, I got a lot of quirks, right? I mean, they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, I'm going to try it. So they get who I am. But we get who each other are, and we support each other to be successful. That's what you need, okay? I mean, resumes, sorry. You know, I think the most important, a resume is important in financial, you know, CFOs, but they also have to support your goals. They have to understand your goals, your culture. It's very important, right? You can't just trust guys that say, all the guys that said they knew how to run a plant, I mean, I might as well just shot myself. We don't even have a plant. Pop Gourmet does not have a production plant anymore, okay? We built 4. And the last one cost us about $9 million, down the toilet, okay? I trusted the wrong people. I believed in resumes. Doesn't work.
Can we end on a high note?
Sure.
Can you talk to me about some of the rock stars, experiences that you've had with people?
Well, you know what? I mean, literally can run around and pinch myself with the people that I had brought in that never had jobs or their first jobs out of high school, a lot of these guys that were transitioning are so intelligent, they just never knew how to direct that energy
Didn't have
and
the
how to
channel.
apply it, or,
Yeah.
or no one would ever trust them.
Yeah.
One of my lead investors, his son, he kept trying to get him, he dropped out of college. I mean, it's a very wealthy family. He's like, hey, will you give him a shot? I said, sure. And the guy came to me, he goes, look, my dad's friend over here put me in the warehouse, my dad's friend over there, had me doing clerk jobs. I go, not here. I go, it works the same way here for everybody. I want you to try to get involved in everything, and we're going to figure out where your strengths are, and that's how we're going to apply it. So I think I see a lot of people go on and do great things. One of the guys went on, and he's on the board at What's Next, and he was first job he ever had outside of prison, and now he's helped running an organization. So just the connections that I've made across the board, me learning not to be fearful of who I am or being insecure or having an ego. I mean, egos should just go out the window, right? I just love doing this, and I love connecting with people, which is why when I go to trade shows, I am behind that booth. I mean, I leave literally. The only reason I leave is to go to the restroom, okay? I don't walk around the shows. I like connecting with the buyers. I like to collect them because I like the feedback. I mean, it's thrilling to me. So, just learning how to deal with people and all the people that have grown with me, it's amazing. It really is. I mean, this whole thing, I travel around the world, and it's just, I never thought. I mean, who would think I have partners in a plant in Russia or building a plant in India or these guys in Japan? I mean, I was out of prison, where nobody even wanted to talk to me, okay? I was isolated. And, it's just a great place to see that you can change your life. It's up to you, right? It doesn't matter the cards you're dealt, where you come from, what you've been through, what anybody thinks of you. If you decide to live a good life and do things right, and you want to be successful, and you put you're really committed and honest and have integrity,
It all works out.
it sure does.
Yeah, absolutely works out. Well, David, you've been absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate your sharing that story. It's a great one, and just your honesty and forthrightness. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
You're awesome.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, sir.